Carney is so connected. He sits on the WEF board. Like and same with Freeland. Like he is like one of the top tier globalists when it comes to this world, right? And he was like Justin Trudeau's advisor through. There's some notes even from the convoy. It's like he's been very much behind the scenes puppeteering for a very long time. But when you have 75% of our trade comes from the States, it's amazing to me that they would be that provocative. Like, what are you trying to do? And then my intuition says, are you trying to tank the country so that you can sell everything off for pennies on the dollar?
Kris Eriksen, it is so nice to talk to you, man. I feel like this conversation is very long overdue.
It's good to be here, man, and I agree. It is. It's good to be happening now, though, for sure. Excited to be here and excited to have a chat with you. So, thanks for having me.
Well, we were in danger of doing the podcast without actually recording it. So I figured we should just hit the record button and go. You've been on my list for a really long time, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because you're one of these guys who has just such a clear view of what's happening in the world around us. You are part of the best podcast going in this country, period. The Philosopher, Stoic, and Teddy Bear. I told Payman, now that I got you, I've picked off both of his co-hosts, and I'm going to start moving into his other podcasts because Payman has this weird ability to link up with very smart people. Other than me, of course. But Kris, yeah, they're great, dude. So I wanted to start off our conversation by asking a really general question. Kris, what the fuck is happening in our country? What is going on?
I think it's one of those, we're at the point in time now where they just don't care anymore. I think a lot of our country it's been like this forever, but they just took more care in making sure that we didn't know what was actually going on. Yeah. And what I mean by that is just the inability, like right now, we've seen what's happened over the last 11 years and there's been zero accountability. And so, trust in our institutions. When I was working prior to my retirement in 2019, I was always told, I was like an anti-corruption guy. I was a troubleshooter liaison. And I was always told, the public perception of the institutions is paramount as a reason why certain people might not be going to prison and they're allowed to slither out the back door. But when the COVID event hit, everything was just inverted, and now we're in a situation where we can point fingers, right? I like to use the term establishment because it's kind of all encompassing. It's those who were for the status quo and protecting it. And then there's the rest of us. And then there's a lot of people in between that are kind of caught, with fear and anxiety as far as, they've always voted this way or voted that way. And the people in the middle, we really have no options. Law enforcement seems to not want to do anything. Our courts, although we can talk about the Emergencies Act appeals being dismissed, that's good, but there's still so many other things that should come out of that will likely not come out of that when you use the Emergencies Act unlawfully. Okay, right? So what happens to those people for what was done to the Canadian people? And so I think it's one of those things where it's always been there. So we can talk central bankers, we can talk foreign influence, we can talk globalists, we can talk the United Nations and all these other things. But I don't think you can really point your finger at one individual or one organization. I really just think Canada is a free-for-all for kleptocracy, if you want to use it that way. Everyone's just stealing our money and giving it away. Not to us, right? That kind of thievery. So we're in a situation now where our food banks are all-time high. Inflation rate was, I think, 6.2% year over year at the end of the year for December. Cost of housing, homeless camps everywhere, right? And they're all still hanging out in Davos this week and patting themselves on the back and then projecting and gaslighting. Not necessarily Trump. Again, I'm not an all-in on Trump guy, but I like to see him get up there and at least smack some of these globalists around. So, but we're in very dark times, and I don't know exactly what to do outside of trying to still be there for people and encourage as many people I can to stay, not necessarily stay in Canada, but to get them to tomorrow, because there's a lot of anxiety and despair. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I have this sense, like you said at the beginning there, like it's always been this way, but the internet gave us a window into what lies beneath. And COVID cracked that window wide open. And so what's happening now in Western society is we're experiencing this reckoning where we're seeing behind the curtain for the first time. And we're actually seeing how the sausage is made. And I think that's what's driving a lot of this. And what scares me, is that we've segregated ourselves, it seems, for the most part, into two camps, right? Like for myself personally, I consider myself politically homeless. I am neither liberal nor conservative. I think most people find themselves in the middle, but there's this pressure to like pick a team, So of course, for myself, I'm often accused of being a Nazi alt-right conspiracy theorist podcast guy, right? Right, whatever. That's my title. I'll take it. Right. But the thing is like it's just that the liberals and the left have been in power for so long, especially in Canada, that's who I'm criticizing and being critical of, because they're the ones who are leading us into darkness. But if Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives had have won the last election in Canada, I would be equally critical of them. And the only reason I am not being overly critical of Trump and his administration is because they seem to be the only people in the world right now who are interested in maintaining some form of national identity. Everywhere else is just kind of becoming part of this amorphous globalist blob. And so I don't have really any, of course there's policy criticisms. I don't necessarily agree with the way that they've handled the deportation thing, but even there, JJ Carroll, he's currently an ICE agent. He signed up, put his money where his mouth is, but he was formerly the deputy agent in charge of the San Diego border, which is, highly active. And he gave me a really good counter argument to all of this outpouring of anger that we're seeing at the way that the Trump administration and ICE are handling the remigration effort. And it's very simple. If you have 50 million people enter your country, you can't go on a case-by-case basis and track people down. You have to cast a wide net, bring them all in, and then sort them out once you have them, which makes sense because you don't have the personnel or the resources to do it person by person. We're talking 50 million plus people who came into the United States illegally. So anyways, the point is that through this window and through this awakening, this global Western awakening, we now find ourselves on one team or the other team. And if you're on this team, then you can't talk to people on that team. And the political ideologies have become further divided and more extreme over time. And so I guess my question to you, Kris, is, where does that leave us? What do we have going forward?
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of it's by design, right? Like I criticize, I'm kind of in the middle, and I kind of poke at everybody and just say, hey, I'm more concerned about the things they're silent about than what they're actually saying. Because one of my biggest things is the trauma that was inflicted on the population during COVID, and for them to everyone just to move on is re-victimizing, and just pretending that nothing happened, and it did. But I think where we're at now is, I kind of view, this isn't everyone, right? But I see Team Blue, Conservative Party of Canada, is really no different than the Liberal Party of Canada. There's some policies with Agenda 2030 and other things, Paris Accord and other things. I won't get too technical with that. But when it comes down to the mindset, they're very similar. Their followers are very similar. I think that it is sad because a lot of them are scared, right? And they're just so used to like generational voting, right? My dad always voted Conservative. There's a lack of critical thinking that's going on there, and I think that's the big problem, is because we can't organize, because the Conservative Party of Canada has everyone kettled off. Just trust us. We'll fix it next time. And most people don't know, right, that Mulroney signed us on to Agenda 2015, Harper signed us on to Agenda 2030, and then we get the Liberals, and there's no way for us to push back, which puts a lot of people. I agree with you. I think the vast majority of us are in the middle. Right, we want to be able to have opportunity, be able to pay our bills, roof over our head, take care of our family, have opportunities to grow if we want to put the effort in to have improved quality of life. But they are so good at spinning that narrative, and you see it. You probably catch the heat too. It's like as soon as I criticize Poilievre, it's no different than when I criticized Trudeau. Mm-hmm. It's like, how dare you? This mentality. There's no way. And so I wasn't like trying to scare people when I say, hey, it's a uniparty. I'm trying to say that if that's your plan, have a backup plan.
Mhm.
You know, for me, it's so sad that we can get to this point now where it's always been red or blue, and everything
Yeah,
else in the middle is left out in the cold, and viewed as the other, which is very cult like. Both parties are
well,
very cult like.
oh yeah, the teams have for absolutely developed into religious cults. You know, as I that's why I changed my X bio. It used to say free thinker or something like that, and I wrote anti-political religious cults, because I want to be clear to people, like, I'm not on your team. I'm not on your team. You know, like, anytime I've ever been critical of Trump or Republicans or conservatives in Canada, I get a whole shitload of hate mail from people like, you know, how can you do that? You know, do you understand what's at stake? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
You're gonna split the
Like,
vote.
yeah,
You're
well,
gonna
not only
split
that,
the vote.
you're acting like I'm doing something sacrilegious. Like I'm
Yeah.
about to be excommunicated from, you know, the cult, the
And they
team.
will
But I was,
if you step out of line. But you weren't in the cult though, right? But people are
I,
assuming that you should be.
well, I think they're assuming that I am, because I've been so critical of the Liberals and Justin Trudeau in the past and Mark Carney now. But I'm critical of them because look at what they've done to us. You know what I mean? Like that video, there's a video of Justin Trudeau at the World Economic Forum, which, by the way, what the fuck is he doing there anyways?
Right.
Right? But there's this video of him walking down the street, down, you know, the street in Davos, and there's a British journalist who's questioning him. And you know, the thing, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like Mark Carney handled that situation better. I don't know if you recall the series of videos that hit the internet at the last World Economic Forum, but I think it was Rebel News and a few other people caught up with him and were asking him questions, and he actually answered their questions, right? Like,
Yeah.
and in this circumstance, in this video clip, this ambush journalist guy is asking him about the COVID vaccines, and the way to diffuse that entire situation is to just be, I mean, I don't know if he would be being honest in this circumstance, but just to say, hey, listen, we were dealing with something that we felt was extremely dangerous, and we panicked, and we were trying to find a solution. And that's all we were doing. There was no agenda. There was no plan to depopulate the country. We just panicked. And this is what happened. And we tried to fix it. And that we put forth our best effort to try to fix this problem. That would have been like the end of the fucking clip. You know, like, I don't, what would the guy have said to that? Well, you still killed a lot of people. Yeah, well, we rolled out an experimental vaccine to the entire globe. And with any medication, with any new medical treatments, there are going to be people who unfortunately suffer injuries or die. And that's why we set up the Vaccine Injury Fund in Canada. Now, it's bullshit, but he would have diffused the whole situation. Instead, he just walks with that stupid smirk on his face the entire time, tells the guy he's the disinformation guy or whatever, disinformation agent. I don't think he used that term because he's too stupid to. But the point of the matter is like, dude, why are these people this way? I guess that's the question. It's like, what, like, why don't they just ever say, hey, listen, man, we had a state of emergency and we just tried to fix it, and unfortunately it just got worse over time.
Yeah. I think I did see that video, and the guy was like, yeah, my cameraman's mother died from the vaccine, and then Trudeau starts laughing with the guy next to him. I don't think he was actually laughing at that. I think he was nervous, and
I think it's nervous. Yeah, it's nerves. It's anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't look good as far as the timing goes. I think they're like it because there's like that elitist mindset. Like that, I think they genuinely have disdain for people that are not a part of their club. Right, this entitlement, this silver spoon, this everything's handed to them. Whether it's they never have to worry about their finances, they never have to worry about their careers. They're all taken care of from a young age. I think they call them the Laurentian elite in Canada, and so there's such a huge detachment from real. Like I was on the ground as an advocate for 20 years. Like I'm meeting people and wanting to understand who they are, empathy, compassion, humility, objectivity. All these things as far as like wanting to genuinely try and help people and understand them. And you can't do that unless you're willing to listen. But if you're not on, it's like that I always say, don't look up to me, don't look down on me, kind of look me in the eyes. Let's have a conversation. These guys can't help but look down on people. Like, you see the way they're walking, even Chrystia Freeland, when we see her, all these people in Davos, they've all got this smug walk, even their gait, right? When how they walk, it's all just, and there's a lack of realism there, but it's important to understand it because that's where we're at. We're dealing with people who you kind of view us as useless eaters. Pay your taxes, die. Other than that, you have no value. And if you go against the cult, we'll shadow ban you and destroy you and get you fired. All these kinds of things where they got everything locked down now in this country. But I don't know, like, I'm not a doctor, right? So I can't associate, narcissistic personality disorder, sociopathy, psychopathy. There could be like a dark triad. I wouldn't surprise me if there was if you did like a study on all these people where they've all got little bits of each as far as that goes. Because if you don't have empathy, you shouldn't be leader, right? If you cannot see the people you're leading as actually having value, and what Trudeau said is like, how long do we tolerate these people, right? Like. And this guy's still walking the streets in Davos with Katy Perry. It was a funny little clip where they're good RPN news or something like that. Little clip of Ezra coming up to Justin Trudeau and saying, hey, about the Emergencies Act. And then the AI kicks in and Trudeau starts crying. Katy Perry picks him up and he's, I told you he was mean. and she runs and then she falls. Right. But again, it's like those little snippets of, okay, humor is one of those things that'll get us through. But I think there's a level of detachment, just in general, a detachment from the elite. And anybody who's not on their level in their mind. So,
there has to be. I mean, for him to just not stop and say, I mean, even angrily, nervously say, look, this was what the World Health Organization recommended for us to do. All of the G7 countries were following the same protocol. You do not understand what not following that protocol would have done to our trade relationships, would have done to us diplomatically. You do not understand how this would have devastated the country. Okay. So if you can't get over what happened, I'm sorry, and I'm speaking from his perspective. For me, I'm like, fuck you. But,
empathizing with what could be said or his position could be, at least to tell the public. Right.
But there has to be, I mean, look, if you want to talk about sociopathy, psychopathy, I would label Trudeau a narcissistic sociopath and Mark Carney a psychopath. I think those are the two, you know what I mean? Like defining characteristics of both, because Mark Carney is different than Justin Trudeau in that with Justin Trudeau, he's kind of like this, like, retard surfer boy who's like secretly gay and doesn't want people to know and just wants to smoke weed, and like there's nothing really happening in his head. Whereas Mark Carney is the opposite of that. He's like this mastermind, this cold, calculated mastermind. Everything boils down to the numbers. Everything boils down to dollars and cents, and not in a good way. He's not like a guy you can put in there and you're like, he's going to fix it. He's going to get in there and he's going to figure out a way to squeeze this and manipulate it in every which way possible. And now we're seeing this geopolitical game being played where he's drawing Canada closer to China, at the same time drawing Canada closer to the EU, which I think is really London. And I don't know what he's doing. Like, Kris, do you have any insight on this? What is he really doing? Because you can't, we're just north of the United States. You cannot betray that empire and expect no repercussions, especially being along their borders. So what do you think is happening there?
Well, I think even if we go back to when this all started, the elbows up thing before Carney was elected, Trump said, I believe that his asks were get your border under control, right? The fentanyl, the drug trade, deal with that, right? Those were his primary asks in the beginning. And then we saw everyone, including Poilievre, elbows up. He didn't go elbows up, but he was the opposition party was so in line. And it comes back to, I think, like right now, I still can't get over, the former CSIS guy saying, ever since Mulroney to Mr. Trudeau, all governments have been compromised by agents of CCP. Not just them, though. Like, I don't want to just point to China. I think that we're kind of a whore when it comes to that. Like, everyone just gets access to us and whatever. But with this, I think it's so agitative, and I don't know how much influence is coming through as far as like is Carney, because Carney is so connected. He sits on the WEF board, and same with Freeland. Like, he is like one of the top tier globalists when it comes to this world. right? And he was like Justin Trudeau's advisor through, there's some notes even from the convoy, it's like he's been very much behind the scenes puppeteering for a very long time. But when you have 75% of our trade comes from the States, it's amazing to me that they would be that provocative. Like, what are you trying to do? And then my intuition says, are you trying to tank the country so that you can sell everything off for pennies on the dollar? Right? Are you here to just literally destroy this country's economy, debase the dollar, hyperinflation, like turn us into Venezuela 2.0, and then all your friends, all your Brookfields, all your people around the world get to come in and buy up our resources as we try to rebuild. But at the same time, he's just going to leave the keys on the table and go back to London, go back to somewhere else when he's done. I kind of view him as an economic hitman. He's very good at what he does. I agree. He's very sharp. He's calculated. He's cold, right? He doesn't, but with China, there's going to be consequences, right? And the weirdest part was when the tariffs were happening, when Trump's like, oh, I'm putting tariffs here. It's like, we were already getting tariffed by China, right? But we never hear about that kind of stuff. We always have to stay quiet about it. And then when the foreign interference investigation went in, nothing to see here. It's like, really? Like, the guys that they're even coming out, I don't even think, did Sam Cooper testify? Right? He's holding press conferences, like pointing out David Eby's like advisor, like, and nothing ever happens, right? But then you also see the provocative nature of sending troops to Greenland. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm going, like, you have this empire. It is an empire, right? And there's no reason for us to be in a trade war with them, period, outside of another agenda. I can't completely, because I know that Brookfield bailed out Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Like, I know that they do go back, right? So I can't completely exclude that. I'm not saying they're working together, but you can't completely try and look at it from 40,000 feet and go, are we all being played here? Because nobody benefits in Canada from what's happening, right? And so, but then we see Venezuela happen, Greenland, like the States is making moves in a big way, but you cannot tell me China and Europe, like, are you kidding me? As far as we're going to cozy up there, it makes no sense to me. So I think my insight is that I've kind of said this before. It's like a controlled demolition. It looks like that to me. And I think that you want to antagonize Trump. If it was his first term, I might be like, okay, you already know what's coming. He slammed Carney in his speech in the WEF, like, go away, you little globalists, like, get out of our country, leave our country alone, let us build, because we should be amazingly wealthy, right? That's my opinion. And I think all these banksters and globalists see that. They know how much wealth our country can generate, and they want that for themselves. But you got to blow it up first so you can rebuild, right? It's like the military industrial complex. They go to war. It's like, oh yeah, the bullets and everything, the missiles right on, Halliburton, we all get paid, Dick Cheney and the neocons. And then it's like, not just that, it's like who gets to rebuild, right? And I think Brookfield has already got a contract or something to rebuild in Ukraine. Don't quote me on that, but I'm following the money as far as, okay, you break it, then you get to fix it, and all the money is centralized. The biggest wealth transfer I think we've ever seen in the world's history since 2020 when COVID hit. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah. So just to clarify, Brookfield, this is to the best of my knowledge. So I might be wrong here, but or it might be bigger than what it is. But Brookfield has investment in Ukraine's energy infrastructure, and BlackRock, who owns part of Brookfield, is invested in both the defense and the rebuild, right? But what you're saying, like, people need to understand that, like, these people are invested in both the destruction and the rebuilding process, right? Like, that's how they make money.
And for so long.
Yeah. And well, I identified what was happening in Canada a while ago, and I felt that way too. Like, this has to be a controlled demolition, because why else would you be making the choices that you're making? The thing that confuses me right now is, I did a write-up on, Mark Carney's speech at the World Economic Forum, what I took away from it, right? And it's just this long anti-American diatribe, right? Like, he's trying to contextualize the United States as the global bully, and the middle powers as being the victims of the bully that now need to band together in order to, not so much defeat the bully, but compete with the bully, right? Which is fucking foolish, because there's like, I keep trying to explain this to people. Like, the world is going to have an empire. It's going to have a superpower, whether you like it or not. We can all imagine that we live in this perfect global utopic society where everybody trades and gets along and nobody hurts each other, but that's just not reality, right? And what we're dealing with right now is an escalation in a Cold War between China and the American empire. And China wants to be the new global empire. They want to be the hegemon. And it appears that Mark Carney and the globalist elites that are part of his circle are hedging their bets on China. But I just don't understand how they could possibly underestimate the United States, especially with a fucking wild man like Trump at the helm. This is where I've been confused, because I don't understand why they're poking that bear. They're poking a thermonuclear 1,000 megaton bear. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't mean that in terms of nuclear war. I mean that in terms of, if the United States even wanted to intervene in Canada, it would be an overnight sort of thing. I mean, they would have Parliament cleared out in a matter of hours. All of our politicians would be wrapped and gagged and bagged in an hour, maybe 2 hours. So the thing that's confusing me here, the part about this that I don't get, is that Mark Carney has to know this. He's a globalist. He's smart. He's calculated. Everything is clearly thought through. So why do something as reckless as challenge the United States by inviting China to not just in the door, but to become your bedfellow?
Well, I think it's one of those things where the optics of it is so important, because you have to think about, obviously you have the American, historically speaking, has not had great relations with China. Trump is also, though, he's not been like hugely antagonistic. He has, but at times he'll back off. He'll say some things that are far more diplomatic. But with us, it's like we're on their border.
Yeah.
Like, is he trying to set up the scenario? Right? Because I don't want to see America invade, but again, we're also a lawless nation. Our institutions have been compromised, so we're in like a bit of a weird thing. But I'm thinking to myself, do I need to get an American flag just in case, just so they know, like, I'm not a commie?
Yeah.
Right? I have American blood in me too, right? But at the same time, it's like the antagonistic side of it is like, you keep poking, there's going to be a response, and who's going to get hurt by that? We are, the people of this country. He's not. He's loaded. All of our politicians in Parliament, they're not going to be. Not only do they make over $200,000 a year, we also pay for their food. We pay for everything basically for them. So they're the elite class, the upper class is going to be fine, while the middle class is decimated into poverty. That's maybe the plan, right? Universal basic incomes, central bank digital currencies, digital IDs. Right, 15-minute cities, right? Destroy it so that we can rebuild and provide you with everything you need. Thank you, government. Thank you, daddy. Like, but what does that do for our freedom and our ability for freedom of expression? We see with all the bills that are coming now too. We're under a huge, an onslaught of different things, and it's hard to be able to figure out what do you focus on. But this is the biggest one, because this is 75% of our trade. So if he just keeps hitting industry after industry after industry, you're going to have way more layoffs. Unemployment's going to go through the roof. People aren't going to be able to afford their homes, their food, and so it's just this perpetual system of destruction, and no one's doing anything. Even look at the opposition, right? Go and look at Poilievre's Twitter feed. 11 years, all this corruption, and you guys have done nothing to hold anyone accountable. So are you really opposition, or are you just standing there and pretending to be opposition? I saw this sign the other day. It was like, I'll qualify it in a sec, but it was a sign that said Democrats are here to destroy the country and Republicans are just here to pretend like they're going to try and stop them, right? When I say Republicans, I view it very much as a different kind of situation. Like, I would say Donald Trump and his supporters are more populist, they're more nationalist as far as wanting to do what's right by their country. Then you have the rhinos, which is the Republican in name only, that are very much elitist, a part of the establishment. And we have the same thing here. Right, we have the liberals, and then we have the conservatives in name only, right? They're not conservatives. They're just pretending. There's an article that just came out on the Vancouver Sun today from the Vancouver Sun saying that the vast majority of the people running for the BC Conservative leadership, which is a provincial party in my province, are ex-Liberals, right? So there is no, and then you see like the floor crossing. You're a conservative today, but now you're a liberal. It's like, no, they're all in it together, guys. Like they just wear these, they pretend, right, that they are separate and they're different. You know, I kind of saw some of that when I was in politics, but I was never outside of the 6 weeks that I helped a buddy run for, you know, as campaign manager. And yes, for the Liberals in 2019. But I was never a Liberal, just helping a buddy. Anyways, but I did for the 10 years prior when I was doing a lot of troubleshooting.
Sorry, if you don't mind me interjecting, that's like, I'm not really gay. It was just college, right? Like that's kind of.
Well, no, let me qualify that. No, let me qualify that. I would have always described myself as a classical liberal, like that, like prior
me
to
too.
2019. But because of my work, I wasn't able to. I did work for CEOs, NGOs, not-for-profits. Sometimes a liberal, BC liberal, or a conservative would call me. A Green Party person would call me. I was just one of those guys that I know a guy, right? So if taxpayer money was being screwed with, if a group or if a community, like most oftentimes it was homeless people, it was people with addictions, disenfranchised communities that were being abused or couldn't get access to services from a not-for-profit, I would be the guy to go in and figure out where's the money going and what's the problem here, because you're being paid to do something to serve the community. You're clearly not. So that's the kind of work I did. That's how I met Seamus Heffernan, the candidate. He was a constituency assistant for Jaddy Sidhu in Mission, BC. And he was great. Like he helped me not get grants, but he helped me communicate to be able to get certain things, bring people together from First Nations. You know, I used to build bridges and he was one of those guys on the other side. So I became friends with him. And then for 6 months, he's like, man, I need you to run my campaign. I'm like, I can't, man, you understand my work. I can't join the party. Like I have to be able to be independent and objective, neutral. And then he told me, you know, 6 weeks before the campaign drops, I think it was 3 weeks, my girlfriend's going to be giving birth during the RIT period. So I had a couple drinks in me sitting at the bar and I'm like, all right. And then as we're sitting there, so he's doing his thing, and all of a sudden I start getting emails from the Liberals, and I flick my phone across, and I said, what the F is this? I'm not like helping you because I think you're a good guy. I believe, you know, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it was about 6 to 8 weeks of my life out of 19 years in politics, but I'm never going to live it down. But I've never hit it. If you Google my name, you're going to see, we got our asses handed to us in Abbotsford. But I learned on that campaign, I've said this numerous times, I was very micro in my work, so I didn't really have much of a 40,000 view of the country, right? And so when we start door knocking, and I was in Abbotsford helping him with this, and Abbotsford at the time, it might even still be, was one of the most conservative ridings in the entire country. Yeah. And so it wasn't until I started getting chased off of lawns, and we knock on the door, and we walk up, and they see the Liberal button on my buddy, and you can see the guys in their shop. It's like, Liberals? Grabs a crowbar.
so Kris, before we move forward, actually, I forgot to ask you this question earlier on, but for people who may be unfamiliar with you, can you talk about your background a little bit, what you used to do?
Sure. Yeah. Like I'm kind of like a jack of all trades when it comes to human resources. I've been a team leader for a security company. I was lead hand for infection control at a hospital. I had my social services diploma, and for a long period of time, it wasn't until 2010 I got my diploma and I was going to go finish my degree, but it was at the last semester of my before I graduated, I started going into there's 32 genders. Right, I'm sitting there, I'm like, the people in the class actually think I'm their professor because I was a little older, right? And so I'm asking these questions, like, how did we get to 32, right? And, you know, you start getting, so when I didn't finish my degree because there was way too many mandatory courses that I had to take, and there's no way I could keep my mouth shut about that. It made no sense to me. And so I just filled my backpack up with welfare rights, baby diapers, formula, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right, which was so devastating for me. And so I spent mostly working with homeless communities, addictions, domestic abuse, like the difficult stuff within communities, Abbotsford, Mission, and Chilliwack. And then it led me to doing a lot of work with First Nations communities, which was extremely, for me, like I came away from it saying, okay, you know, 10% of the European community is screwing us all over. 2% need the other 8 to be able to keep the game going. And I found that was very much similar with First Nations. And so the vast majority of my time with First Nations communities was beautiful. Like I met so many amazing people, you know, and but through that, like doing the advocacy on the ground, I became quite a pain in the ass for city councilors, for MLAs, for MPs. And that's how I kind of, you know, it got to the point where they kind of knew that if I'm on it, I'm not there to mess around. I'm just a messenger. I would always say that I'm just a messenger. Right. And, and I was very good. I read The Prince by Machiavelli. I read Solowinski's Rules for Radicals, Sun Tzu's Art of War. And I'm like, okay, if we're going to do this, then you have to be composed. But people needed, you know, I just saw so much abuse and so much devaluing and so much just cruelty to people that have value. They may have made a couple of bad choices in their lives, but still, like if you can't get, one of the examples is, you know, some people couldn't get food from a friendship center, and I'm just like, food, that they were that petty, you know, and so for me it was like, okay, but then it became, I started to learn that it was all about collecting the metadata. And if you want to be able to work with politicians, then you have to take a different tact to it. And so I started using this. I don't need you to take this from me and go and advocate on my behalf. What I need is for you to make sure the ministry responds. I need it on formal paper. I need a signature, right? And so I was just doing a lot of work, hand it off to the lawyers, and then I back away because as an advocate, lawyers don't like advocates once they've taken the case. So I just did a lot of groundwork. And then eventually I ended up working for the Speaker of the House. Once he was an independent, I would not work for him while he was still, you know, tied to a team. And in 2019, I finished that, did a couple more contracts. Then I said, I'm retiring. Because
you're done with it.
Yeah. And then 3 months later, COVID event. I'm just like, I stayed single. I didn't drink. I didn't party. Yeah. Like I was very committed to the game for a very long time. And that's kind of why it's like, I wouldn't change a thing, right? I'm almost 50 now, but it was like I had such a unique experience from one contract to the next. I was one of those guys that I would go to meet most of my contracts for about a 6-year period. I would just be, you know, someone would be like, I know a guy, right? So whether it's hereditary chiefs, whether it's a politician, you know, I get a call or a text and says, hey, you know, Starbucks, 5:00, this is what they'll be wearing, right? And I go and I sit down, pleasantries about weather and sports. They go to the bathroom, I lift the coffee cup up, I look at the name, right? There's a name of a person or a business, and I'll say, give me 24 to 48 hours, whether I take the contract or not. And that's how I did it. It was fun, a little dangerous, but it was still fun, you know, chasing people, it was screwing people over.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you raised that because so my mother is Plains Cree Indian, and I've spent a lot of time in my life just around my people and, you know, on reservations and things. And you see that smaller, the way the Indian bands operate is actually it's a microcosm of the world at large, right? You see the way the bureaucracy operates versus the suffering of the people themselves. And there's an elitist group that exists on every reservation and within every Indian band. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yeah, and everyone.
The outside world operates in the same way. Like the thing that I took away from that experience, or those many experiences, was that we're all Indians on the reservation. We're all on the reservation. We just don't know it. You know, we look at those people because they're isolated and sequestered to the dusty parts of this, you know, our province and our counties where we don't ever go. But we're on the reservation too. And Mark Carney, and I mean, I'll even go as far as say Donald Trump. Well, actually, you know what? I have to say this about Trump. And I made this comment last week on my live stream with Payman, and I'll say it again here. I have been very fortunate to have spoken to people who know him personally on this podcast and behind the scenes. I know a lot of people that I communicate with quite often who know him as a person. And they say that Donald Trump, what makes him different than everyone else is that he actually is a real human being. He's empathetic and he actually cares about people.
I've heard that too.
And that the media has tried to spin this narrative of him being this racist, misogynist, and this is people who even disagree with him, like politically, have told me, who know him, have told me that if there's one thing you can say about Donald Trump, it's that he is a real person. He's empathetic and he wants to help people. Like he's actually genuinely wants to make things better and help people. And he does it in his own way. And they disagree with the way that he's doing it sometimes. But what the difference is, say, between Donald Trump and Mark Carney is that Mark Carney doesn't give a fuck about you. If there's 50 cents he can get out of you by throwing you into a bandsaw, he's going to do it. Whereas Donald Trump is actually trying to make his country better. You know, one of the guys that I had on the podcast prior who know him said to me, like, you know, Donald, like when you think about him, like Donald Trump doesn't have to run for president. Sure, the title's nice. And yes, he does have a bit of an ego. He wants to win a Nobel Prize and all these things, right? But like realistically speaking, from a business standpoint, it's really bad for business. Like think about who Donald Trump was prior to 2015, right? Prior to 2015, Donald Trump is on Ellen. He's on Oprah. Like he has his own brand of ties and hotels and casinos, and I mean he's in fucking everything.
The Apprentice and yeah.
Right. And then he runs for office and he becomes, you know, I mean, Hitler, literal Hitler, right? In quotes, because that's how they describe him. And so what's interesting is that I don't know this for sure, but what I assume is that, you know, Mark Carney is part of a very powerful club. I've said on numerous occasions that Mark Carney is easily one of the most powerful men on earth in finance, unquestionably.
At least the ones we see in the public eye.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. The ones that are viewable, right? Because we still don't know who owns State Street or who owns Vanguard. We do not know. So right. There's definitely some people out there that are very, you know, much further up the top of the mountain.
But you're right. As far as publicly, yeah, he's right up top, right near the top.
And well, this is the thing: is in the world outside of politics, Mark Carney is infinitely more power than Donald Trump could ever be. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump in that world, as I've been told, and I think as is plainly observable, is an outsider. You know, yeah, he does the things. He goes to the dumb little club meetings and whatever, right? But I don't think they ever took him seriously. And in fact, I think that's kind of what was driving him to become president of the United States, was just getting shitted on by these fucking elitists over and over and over again. You know, there's that famous moment at the White House press dinner where Obama, you know, says to Trump, like, you may be a billionaire, but you'll never be president of the United States, right? And then what is it, like 2 years later, he's fucking president of the United States. Like, I think there is part of that because, like, you know, Kris, I don't know about you in your life, but for me in my life, I've always been an outsider myself, right? And part of what is motivated me and incentivized me to be successful is that feeling like you're never part of the club. You're always on the outside looking in, which now as a, you know, 43-year-old man, I look at as a privilege because I get to view everything as an observer. I'm never inside, right? I'm not an insider. But, you know, there's still that part of you that's like, you know, oh, I'm not part of that thing. Fuck those people. Let's go. You know what I mean? Let's make this thing bigger and better than everything everybody else has, you know? So imagine that on a grand scale. Imagine having $1 billion and being like, oh, this club, these people don't want me around. Well, fuck you. I'm going to run the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Just on based on principle and just on the stick it mentality.
Yeah, just stick it to them, right? Like the go fuck 'em mentality. But the point is that Mark Carney on a finance level is just, I mean, he's ironclad. Whereas Donald Trump on the political level is leading the greatest empire the world has ever known. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if what I'm seeing is real, if it's something that is manufactured, but it appears that these two trains are on a collision course. Mm-hmm. And they're literally inches from each other now. And, you know, as you said earlier, like, what does that mean for Canadians? I don't know. Now, here's the comment that I was going to make is, knowing what I do know about Donald Trump, I don't think he'll let it happen to us. I don't think he'll let us fall. And I mean that not as a person on Team Trump or as a guy who's part of this cult.
Right.
As somebody who knows people who know him, I think what they're doing right now is they're trying to figure out a way to do what they have to do with Canada without hurting the population. Do you get that sense at all?
Well, I think it's, yeah, because he could be far more aggressive with what he's doing. I think that even though, you know, even if we take a look at like the other clubs that Carney's a part of, you know, the ones we know about, the ones we don't know about, they know there's a time limit on it, right? So Trump's only got a few more years, right? So I think that, you know, the machine, I've always said that about, you know, the government machine about the Kafkaesque nature. The machine is designed to protect itself. The machine is designed to outlive you, and it will outlive you as one individual. And so having the term limits, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, hopefully something can be done to get whatever's happening in this country in line. It's just so weird to see nobody really actually talking about the heart of the issues that has any authority to do anything about it. So that's what kind of scares me in that sense, is like we have nobody speaking out about the actual true issues of what we're facing. And every time, you know, you can even see, I'll use Polyev as an example. His statement about NATO and Greenland was almost identical to Carney's, right? So it's like, okay, time and a place, man. Like, you're isolating us. And that's what's happening right now, is like, as much as we're opening up to China and Europe, we're being isolated from the States. And at the same time, the States is being isolated by the same people, right? So there's this weird chess game going on right now as far as the repositioning, the new world order. The way Carney said it was so Palpatine.
New world order. I like the way JP did it better. But yeah.
Yeah, he's got the voice. He's got the baritone.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're kind of in that tenuous situation where we have to see, right? And I hope, right, because I think there's enough people. Because I mean, a lot of the stuff, like the one thing, you know, for Americans is they're not like, it must be like weird for them to look at it, like not even necessarily, because the Democrats, they have their cult too, right? And the Republicans, they do, and MAGA, you can call some of that stuff too. It's a very team based game, but you have to think about the people on the border. It's like, are you kidding me? The elbows up stuff. It's like they're the bullies, and they're like, why are you doing this? Right. And that's the other scary part, is that right now, I Stand With Canada is trending, and it's all the same people, elbows
is
up.
It?
And that's the new thing.
Oh, that's so fucking gay.
I saw it right before I came on. I'm just
is it a Canadian thing, or did somebody is it like Americans saying I stand with Canada, or is it like Europe? Like, is it?
It's probably a bot induced.
It's such a white
formation.
Sorry, psychosis. Man. It's just such a cringy white liberal thing. You know what I mean?
The next thing, man.
Listen, man. Look, I had this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday. I was saying that, you know, Venezuela. You take Venezuela, for example. If it had been Bush, even Obama, they would have sent drones in. They would have carpet bombed the fuck out of Caracas. That place would be leveled, right? It'd be a smoking crater.
The military
Donald Trump
complex would have pushed that, yeah.
Donald Trump sent in 20 armed forces guys with like fucking microwaves that isolated the damage to like the Maduro's guards, right? I don't know if you saw the video. There's this it shouldn't be funny, but it is funny, where so they filmed the arrival of the remains of the Cubans. So most of his security detail were Cuban intelligence, right? And they filmed the arrival of the plane with the remains of the Cuban officers who were guarding Maduro. And when they come out, it's just a bunch of infantrymen holding boxes, and somebody wrote in the comments, damn, what the fuck did they do to those guys? Like, they cooked them like they were pizza pockets, you know? But literally, dude, it was surgical. They went in, they blasted them with subsonic weapons, got Maduro, got the fuck out of there, right? And again, I think this lends to who Trump is. He wants to mitigate the damage. He doesn't want civilian casualties. Yes, he values human life, because the reality is he could have made a huge spectacle of it, carpet bombed the shit out of Venezuela, killed thousands of people, got Maduro out of there, and sent a message to the rest of the fucking world, especially Iran. right? I mean, even look at what he did when he. So I can't prove this, but having had conversations with certain people and just putting things together myself, I think Trump, with the bombing of the nuclear facilities in Iran, was put in a bad spot. Israel attacked Iran, did not notify the United States they were going to do it. And Trump, in order to save millions of lives, had to go in and destroy those nuclear facilities, because if there was a chance, which if the United States is saying there's a strong chance they have nuclear weapons, then they probably do. Again, he's saying, okay, we got to go bomb these fucking facilities now, because if we don't, there is a possibility that a lot of people are going to die. Like, if you look at what he does, a lot of what he's doing is motivated by preserving human life.
Yeah.
You know, like he's the opposite of Hitler. And then you're listening to all these, you know, like Mark Carney's speech at the World Economic Forum, you know, like they're trying to make it sound like it's Hitler on the precipice of taking Austria.
Yeah.
But it's the opposite. We're Austria, that we are Austria. You know, exactly. It's convention to projection, right? Yeah. And so, you know, Kris, I wanted to ask you this in the very beginning, but I'll ask it now. Because the I stand with Canada thing is, oh God, that hurts my heart. That just fucking hurts my heart. You know, it's like the hashtag Canada Strong or something. Anyways,
exactly.
It's just so dumb. It's just such a white liberal thing to do. Stop it, guys. Just stop. It's embarrassing. Like we haven't humiliated ourselves on a global scale for like the last 15 fucking years. When does it end? I don't know.
They'll never see the psyops. They just know, oh, that's my new thing. It's like a new toy.
Okay.
Play with it for a little bit.
So let's end on that, Kris, because I know you got to run here in a minute. Why do these people continue to fall for the same shit over and over and over again? Why are they so devoted? I mean, almost suicidally. Why are Canadians suicidally devoted to the status quo?
I think it's because they don't know anything else. Like, I think the more you, like, as an outsider, I've always been, like, since I was 12. I'm like, I'm not going to fit in. I'm just going to roll with it. And you know,
yeah, me too.
With bullying and all the rest of it, it's like, yeah, I'm just going to be me. Dignity's not on the table. But I think it's one of those things where, you know, you know, it's hard to put your finger right on it. But if you don't have any actual purpose in your life, if you don't have the ability to critically think, if you don't have an understanding of what empathy, compassion, humility, and objectivity are, right, then you are going to be looking to just fit in. And that fear of being excommunicated, that fear of being left out, if you don't go, like we saw with COVID, like we saw with Elbows Up, like we see with the Conservative Party, Bring It Home, right? All these slogans, you know, all of this stuff that is so baseline, it is so superficial. There's nothing to it. There's nothing there. Yet the people still keep going. And I think it's if you look into it, it's almost like it is like a psychological operation. And I think that a lot of people are very susceptible to that. And it probably has been going on for a very long time. Like just these subtle hints, these subversive, like we now continue with your scheduled programming is some of those things I kind of point out, you know, television, the lie is right in there. Right. And so people are so easily manipulated. And it's scary because we've seen historically when a population does kind of just that switch goes off, almost like it's like this. I stand with Canada. It's like MK Ultra. Everyone's getting a phone call and you get your code word, and it's like, oh, okay, right now I've been activated as a cog, right, in the wheel, and they don't even see it. So it's very mass formation psychosis. It's dangerous, but I think it all comes back down to a lack of purpose. Potentially, and a lot of people, they don't have anything, so it's so very easy for them to grab on to anything they possibly can to feel like they're part of something. And that's a very human thing to feel like you're a part of something, to feel like you're understood, to feel like you have value and are contributing, right? And I just don't think we have enough in our society that's offering or encouraging that. It's all about just fall in line, conform to your cult's way of thinking, and never explore yourself and ask those questions about who you are, critically think about what you're actually doing. So,
but why do Canadians do that more than anyone else? I see Canadians doing it more than anyone else. It's like we are where we are right now because of that devotion to the status quo. It's like the house is burning down. Like we're like The house is burning down, the ship's going down, use whatever analogy you want to use. This whole fucking thing is done. Right? And still, it's like, I stand with Canada. Why? See, whenever these things happen, I just have and I do this in my regular life. I don't do this online because I just don't want to end up in X arguments. I don't want to argue with people there. When people say mean shit to me on X, which is like every fucking day, I just ignore it, move on, next thing, right? But in real life, like when people follow the trends out, like, I stand with Canada. Why? Well, because it's my country. Okay, well, what is it about your country that you're standing with? What do you stand for? Oh, fuck you. That's always the answer because they don't know.
Conservative.
Right. But you know what I mean? Like, is it just that we're like, and when I say we, I mean Canadians, like metropolitan liberal Canadians. Yeah. Is it just that they're naturally weak people? See, like, I have this theory. Canada's never had a 9/11. We've never had a countrywide catastrophe. Yes, we've had things happen here, but even then, that stuff tends to get swept under the rug. It's like Canada doesn't like to acknowledge its sore spots, right? Mm-hmm. That's a very Canadian thing. Is we like to pretend that everything is on the up and up all the time. So we never, even the bad stuff, we tuck it away. We try to ignore it, right?
It's all repressed.
Right. It's all repressed. So is it right? Like, Canada's that one friend that you go to Vegas with and ends up like doing coke, killing a hooker, and then committing suicide because they've been holding on to so much for so long. Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, but it's like, why are we this way? Like, why, like, and by we, I don't mean me and you, but why is Canada this way culturally? You know, like we are in a very, very, very bad place right now. But if you go, and I mean, I'm in Alberta. If even in Alberta, you go out and you go walk around, it's like nothing's happening.
Mm-hmm. It's all geographical, right? Like it depends on where you live and how many trans flags and other things are around. Like you can see, it depends. It's like a woke meter, right? It's one of those things where the further in, like, you know, again, I grew up in the Vancouver area.
Me too. I'm from Richmond originally. Yeah, that's yeah.
And so for me, it's like to see that those woke, it's the schools, right? We could go all the way back as far as the media, the programming, the education system, the programming, the indoctrination components that are being pushed by the UN, SDGs, all these other things, like all of these nefarious, I don't even know if Soros is up here, but I'm sure we've got a Soros in Canada that's pushing all of these identity politics. And that's the problem. Identity politics. What's your identity? What do you think? What do you want? We're not asking that. You're being told how to think. And if you don't go along, you're removed from the group and you're called everything. Like, we're at the point now, because when I was growing up, it's, again, we settled our differences. I'm Gen X, right? So yeah, we had differences and stuff like that, but it wasn't like a situation where you talk to somebody, like you meet somebody new for the first time and you're like, okay, the first topic, okay, great. You know, second topic, third topic. Eventually you're going to hit a nerve where there's this immediate trained response to other you. Like, as soon as I say, oh, okay, well, no, I'm for making sure that children aren't sterilized and mutilated. You transphobe. What? Like, right. To punish and sanction countries for genital mutilation. Like, why are we doing this to kids? Right? But there's that point. It could be so many different topics, man. Now there's like this long list of potential triggers. And I just want to say, it's like, I don't want to get to that point where if that does happen, you know, I'm going to ask you on the doll to point where I hurt you. Right.
but like, you know, like, I lived in the United States for a really long time, and I this was prior to recent years, so maybe things are different there now. But exactly what you just said, it's when you say, I don't support mutilating children, sexualizing and mutilating children, that's just not something I'm into, and they're like, you transphobe. Like, it's like their devotion to the status quo ideology overrides their rationality. Yeah. And this seems like, I don't know if it's just a Canadian thing, people watching. I know we have a lot of viewers in the United States and a lot of viewers in Europe. So leave a comment below. Let us know if it's the same way where you are. But it's just like, with Canada, we are on the edge, man. We are at the tipping point. We're about to fall off the cliff. and we have very short amount of time to pull this thing back. And I don't think we will, because culturally we're so fucking diseased. We're so sick that we don't even see it in ourselves. You know, it's like if you have cancer and you're losing all this weight and you're getting thinner and thinner and thinner, eventually you go to the doctor. It's like we're at stage 4, ready to go in the hospice, and we just haven't accepted that we have cancer yet.
Yeah, I'm looking thin for my age. Not making fun of people who have cancer, but at the same time,
definitely not.
But it's that disconnection from reality that you're speaking. It's right in front of you. I think more north. I think like there's Alberta, Saskatchewan. I think that's one of those things, right? You have the ideologues, the identity politics. It because the media is all on board with it. They're funded. That's the messaging, right? But it's the city centers. But the further rural you go, like I'm out in the Okanagan in BC, the further north you go, Prince George, Fort St. John, again, it's not the same. Right. And there's also a lot less establishment there, too. Right. I always said, like, I try to figure out, I don't like labels, but when they look at the center, but you look at the right, I'm a populist conservative with a couple of huge scoops of traditional conservative, but I am so anti-establishment conservative. And there's so many of them that are helping to pull the wool over the Canadians' eyes to make them feel like that we're isolated, that we're the minority, a fringe. Right. But I think, the more the veil gets lifted, I think that, we have to be able to do what we can, to help people get to tomorrow. Like I always say, it's going to get worse. And I agree. We're coming to that point where there's going to be a breaking point. I just hope that it's not violence. I hope that it's not overreach by the government. I hope it's not something that is going to allow the government to do more as far as put more control over the people who just want to live, faith, family, freedom, neighbors, right? All these kinds of things that are actually, what matters. That's where you find your purpose, right? And at the same time, it's a clown world, and we're being led by a carny. And I've worked security at rodeos before.
Yeah.
And when the carnies show up afterwards, they don't get along with cowboys, right?
Well, listen.
It's 10 o'clock, guys. I need to pack up at the Fat Pig Saloon. Let's go. Go ahead.
Well, Kris, I know you need to get out of here, so I have one last question for you, and this kind of leads into another conversation. So maybe we will say this is a to be continued at the end, because I think there's a larger conversation. But you were involved with 1BC, which, for people who aren't familiar, they're an independent, let's say a libertarian sort of party in British Columbia. As you said earlier, you've put your money where your mouth is a number of times. You stepped up and gotten involved in the inner workings of politics. So last question, Kris, what is it going to take to break us out of this spell? What do we need to do to save this country?
I think it's one of those things where that's like a whole other episode, but I'll paraphrase for next time. It's going to take backbone, will, courage, principles, values, right? Waiting for other people to fix the problem. And I'm not saying, violence, but when it comes to politics, right? That's our biggest problem. It is a giant swamp. It is a deep swamp. And so too many people are looking for power, prestige, spotlight, and not enough people are willing to stand on principle when these kinds of people interfere, when these people are in the room, right? If you got a swamp creature in the room, hey, right? Like, get them out of there. They're not there for you. So any type of populist movement that starts, anything that, it can be any type of vehicle, a bus. I always describe it as that. That's why I joined 1BC. I'm like, I want a bus. The best part of being with 1BC was talking to British Columbians on the phone. That was what I wanted to do. Director of outreach. That's where I'm a community organizer. Like, that's where my heart is. But I understand the swamp. I understand politics. I understand human behavior in the social environment. And anytime you have people that are willing to put themselves ahead of the team, hide agendas, the toxicity that comes into the room, and there's not enough people out there that are willing to say what needs to be said in the moment to protect the mission, to protect the bus, to look out for like I always say, it's like, if you're a leader, you have a fiduciary responsibility. If you're with an organization, it's to the members, right? Well, in politics, you have a responsibility to the citizens, of the people who are members, who are donating money to you, right? And so for me, it's like, But is it going to take? It's going to take a complete revamping of risk. You have to be willing. For me, it's easy. Like, again, I stayed a while, and then eventually my healed ulcers start twitching, and I'm like, okay, I'm like surrounded by the swamp. I can't do it anymore. I have to leave. I have nothing but good things to say about 1BC. I said clearly the reason I left was because of Wyatt Claypool, and that's it. I got nothing else to say about it. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the willingness when you form something to have a code of ethics, like, again, it comes down to values and principles, and willing to put aside emotional connections with people, right? Just to be able to stick to the mission. And that's the biggest problem, right? When ego is pride, that chasing the glory, whether it's money, power, fame, whatever it is, right? It's like, that is one of the worst parts about the human condition, because it means that you don't care. You're there for yourself. And we have too many of that. And you'll even see it, even, at the conservative convention and other places. But we're in a dark spot. So I would say, to get over this, start local, right? Find out what's going on in your own community. Most communities do have like a political action committee that would probably lean more right or in the center, right? And so sometimes, if you can find a way to get involved, you'll feel less alone, can weather the storm a little easier, because it's coming. But locally, it's probably going to end up having to be that, pull back to local and then endure the storm, and after the storm, see what's left. But keep your wits. It's the number one thing. Focus on healing and balance. Don't stare at the abyss for too long. So
maybe that's the subject for our next conversation. We'll put a to be continued on this.
Absolutely.
And I took a lot of shit. By the way, for my listeners, I took a lot of shit in the JP conversation. People were like, shut the fuck up, man. Let him talk. I talked a lot this episode because Kris is clearly fighting a fucking cold, and I didn't want him to do all the heavy lifting. So before you send me messages, leave comments like, dude, shut the fuck up. Let your guest speak. Dude, I'm helping this guy out. I don't want him to
very much appreciated, man. It got better, but there's that little segment there that it would be great if you just remove that.
See, I'm empathetic too, right? And maybe I'm the next Donald Trump. Kris, before I let you get out of here, man, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm just on X, at K Eriksen, KERIKSEN V2 is my handle on X. And I look forward to doing this again. And next time I'll block off more time, and we'll go for a little longer.
Of course. Absolutely, my brother. And I will say to you what I said to JP. I cannot withstand the temptation to ask Payman to bring me on to PST, but don't let it happen. I will fuck the whole thing up. On that note, guys.
Okay. You're coming on the show.
I'm gonna fuck the whole thing up. But I love the podcast so much. And it what's crazy is, like, so what I was gonna say, guys, Philosopher, Stoic, and the Teddy Bear is the best podcast going in this country, period. It's John Paul Berg, Kris Eriksen, Payman Askari, my co-hosts on Behind the Wall. It is the fucking best podcast. I listen to it like religiously. I am addicted to it. I'll go back through old episodes that I maybe haven't heard yet or that I forgot about just to listen to it. And it's crazy because it's like, I know you guys. So, like, I can just reach out and be like, by the way, can I be on your show? But I don't want to, because I don't want to fuck everything up. So anyways, we'll
do a PST pub night. And so it's just casual, no suits, no ties. We'll just hang.
Hell yeah, man. I'll smoke a joint. You guys can have some drinks. We'll do it. But guys, for people watching, watch Philosopher, Stoic, and Teddy Bear. If you want to understand what's happening in Canada and you want to get fucking bullseye accurate insight, Philosopher, Stoic, and Teddy Bear is the best for that. Like, you're not going to get better insight anywhere else. And if you're watching this podcast and you're listening to a dummy like me, trust me, Philosopher, Stoic, and Teddy Bear is a million times better.
Don't devalue yourself.
Dude, come on. I am so fucking fortunate that I am where I am. I don't know how this all happened, but I am very grateful that it did. And
thank you for the kind words. I'll turn my mic off. I'll let you close without me interrupting again.
Yeah, he's got a cough. Let the man cough. This was the maiden voyage of the new studio. I can't help but feel like I look like I'm inside of an optical illusion, or like one of those 3D books that we had like when we were in elementary school or whatever. But this is it, guys. This is the new studio. Kris got to baptize it with me. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Kris, thank you for the wonderful conversation. We're putting the to be continued stamp on it, and then we'll pick this up next time.
Beautiful, man. Thank you for having me.